Hello and welcome to Authentic Achievements. And today I have the extreme pleasure of interviewing somebody I worked with in the past and became a good friend, the fabulous Mark Whalley. Mark, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kim.
It's such a joy to chat again. We were just talking previously before, weren't we? It's been years, but we worked together at Barclays before you've moved on to an even more illustrious career, doing all kinds of things, haven't you? From working in wealth, moving across, and you now work for STEP. Could you tell us briefly what is STEP and what do you do there?
Yeah, so STEP is the Society of Trust and Estates Practitioners. So lawyers, accountants, trust officers, and others all around the globe who are basically helping families transfer wealth across generations. That's the main thing that they do, and doing that in a very planful way. I'm chief executive there, and I've been at STEP about 3 years. So my role is to be responsible for the organisation's strategy, its culture, its performance and governance, and I work really closely with the board to do that.
And what an amazing thing to do, because it's such a complex thing for people, isn't it? And such a complex time often at the same time.
With our members are dealing with clients who are thinking about some of the most vulnerable times in their life. They've just lost a loved one. In other circumstances, members might be looking after somebody who's perhaps got reduced mental capacity for any number of reasons. And they're trying to put a plan together to help them through their life and make sure that their finances are secure to do that. So it's a hugely responsible role that our members have. And as the organisation that set the qualifications and then try and build the confidence of the public around using our members, it's so important that we get it absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, and providing such a great service for people. And I guess in kind of creating that trust and getting people to work alongside the organisation, alongside your members, building authenticity, which is what we're here to talk about, must be critical, because that's such a key element, isn't it, in building trust, is that people get to know authentically what you're there to do and what you're going to deliver for them.
Yeah, and for me that's something that's really important, and it's something I guess I didn't learn. Back to those Barclays days, a brilliant organisation to work for, the best education I could hope for in many ways, and I was there more than 25 years, so nothing bad to say about Barclays. Interestingly, though, as my younger self, I tried to fit in and conform, and so I wasn't desperately authentic all the time. And it was only really as I headed into some particular moments in my career that I realised that it was holding me back, not being authentic. And it was only when I kind of allowed myself to be authentic rather than trying to fit in, that actually for me, I felt that my career really accelerated after that.
And I so get that, because for years I also tried to conform. I worked for great organisations, but they were very corporate, and I was like, I need to fit in and be corporate, and well, you know me, I'm more like a hyperactive puppy dog than a corporate being, so it wasn't going to be a good fit until I was like, actually I'm just going to have to be myself and then deliver the job. And by actually focusing on delivering the job and not focusing on trying to be something I'm not, actually that's when your career does unlock, doesn't it? And it also becomes so much easier because you're actually just focused on one thing, aren't you? Getting the job done, rather than
you can just do rather than working out what you need to be.
Absolutely. And people can then connect much more easily with us, because actually we know, don't we, if someone's being inauthentic, we might not know what they're being inauthentic about, but we spot that there's a something, and then we waste all of our time trying to work out what it is, instead of actually really connecting with the person and kind of creating, hopefully, a good working relationship that's going to help both prosper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been core for me. I mean, in my earlier years in Barclays, there came a point where it was make a choice. Are you going to go down the corporate route or the personal banking route? And I chose personal banking because for me that was far more. It was far more about people. I would be leading teams of people much sooner in my career than heading into the corporate route, where I had really important jobs and lots of relationships to run with the clients, but typically not managing teams of people that I would get to do in the personal banking side. And that was what really attracted me to that. And I've tried in every role to build an environment where people can be their best. And for me, to be your best, you've got to be authentic, because if not, as we've just said, you're holding something back. And I know that I carried a huge thing around not being as qualified as other people. So I was brilliant at school at not passing exams, mostly because I didn't prepare for them. So when I entered the workplace, it was having failed A-levels, and I carried that with me for a long time. I didn't have all the qualifications that other people had. I wasn't a graduate. I wasn't. And then eventually I just threw all that away and said, you know what, this is what I am, and this is what I've got. And a big debt of gratitude to Martin, who one day I got onto a management development program, and he was one of the graduates who wandered over to talk to this very small group. There were about 100 graduates and half a dozen of us who were not graduates on this program. And he wandered over and said, so who are you lot? And we kind of explained. He said, us lot over there are frightened to death of you. And we're like, what? And he said, well, you all know something. We know nothing. We just arrived with a qualification. You've all got years of experience, and suddenly everyone that you could see, the whole group, the 6 of us, kind of are that just the realization that from a different lens, what we thought was a bit negative was actually massively positive. It's really interesting.
Yeah, we live in a world of polarity, don't we? For every up there's a down, for every left there's a right, and it's fascinating when you go and ask somebody else and get their perspective, and all of a sudden the thing that you thought was the biggest challenge they see as your greatest strength. And I think that's something we kind of unfortunately learn too late in life, don't we? So we've spent years feeling like pulling ourselves down and going, similarly, I don't have the qualifications, I don't have the degree, I do have an MBQ in hairdressing, as you know, and I'm not sure that was always what people were looking for, but actually once you put that baggage to one side and go, I'm just going to show up as who I am and let my reputation and my experience speak for me, instead of almost holding up everything I haven't got. So I haven't got any of these things. We do this awful things to ourselves, don't we, in our heads, because we kind of pull ourselves down and hold ourselves back. And then we project it outwards and assume someone else has done it, until great conversations like the one you had, where somebody tells you their perspective, and you're like, oh.
It's interesting. I was at so I do some volunteer work with the Institute of Directors in Surrey, and we've held a couple of events with students at Royal Holloway and at University of Surrey just recently, all about transitioning from student life into the workplace. And one of my big messages for them has always been that your degree, and I have to apologise to the university in advance for it, your degree is your entry ticket. Because actually people are going to hire you for you, not for your degree, in most roles. I mean, there are some very specialist roles where clearly the degree is going to, what you studied is going to matter. But mostly we're hiring for people, their aptitude, their attitude, probably mostly. And we use the degree as some sort of benchmarking or filter system to say, adept, clever, able to learn, able to apply learning on whatever topic it was. So we think they'll be able to do that in the workplace. Yeah,
it's true, isn't it? Because I think it's moved quite a lot in the last few years, isn't it? Where people are now recruiting for willingness for who you are and how you show up, because we can train the skill, but you can't train the willingness, can you? That's really hard one, really hard one to shift. If somebody doesn't want to do it, they're not going to want to do it. Whereas if you've got somebody who comes in who's like, I'm just willing to learn and I'll do whatever it takes to get on, they're the people that you want to work with, aren't they? Because you can do something for them, and I know as you do as a leader, you can help them to step into that potential and really start to shine. And there's nothing like it, is it, seeing somebody achieve something that they didn't think that they were going to achieve and feel like you were a part of that journey is probably one of the greatest gifts.
Yeah, and also to be able to do that while staying in the background, because they've got to be in the spotlight. I struggle with a bit where people go, look what I did for X, and it's like, just let X tell their story.
Yeah, I completely agree. For me, I just am always really grateful when people share their stories with me, because I think that's that's just a moment to be proud, because that's so kind of people to tell you their journey and let you learn from what they've learned from. And I guess that's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do now and doing this, which is getting to chat to amazing people like you to share your journey and tell us, kind of what's the thing you're proudest of so far.
Yeah, well, that's a big question. 18 years old, leaving school without A-levels. I do now have a degree.
Yeah.
I've also got chartered director qualification. So, I always had the ability. I just didn't have the motivation really at the time. Yeah. It wasn't that I went to a bad school. It was a fabulous school, and I earned huge amounts there that I still use regularly, but mostly about kind of how you get on with people and how you get on in life, not where the coal fields in Europe were. Yeah. Geography was one of my subjects. So going into the workplace for me, and I still hold this message from my father that when I was trying to earn pocket money by washing the car, and the first time I did that, and he came out and kind of inspected the car. You've got to understand he was in the army. Yeah. So inspecting was, when you finished, was part of the deal. And he went, well, let me know when you're finished, and I'll come and look again, and then maybe you'll get your pocket money. But the message was, if you can do something, do it well.
Yeah, I love that.
And that's something that I carried all the way. And you can't do well if you're only half invested in it. Yeah. So you've got to get really invested and just do your best. And all we can ask of anybody is that they do their best. And my best might be different from somebody else's best. And that's okay.
It's so true, isn't it? It's like, it's okay that we can be different and that we all have different skills. And actually, that's the beauty of it, because then we're stronger together, because I might be good at things that you're not so good at, and you're good at things I'm not so good at. So together we become significantly better, don't we? Because we can help each other. And I think similarly, my family will always, if you're doing something, do it to the best of your ability. And if you get it wrong, learn from it and don't get it wrong again next time. Maybe get something new wrong. It wasn't about don't fail, but it was about make sure that you don't keep repeating the mistake.
Yes,
and I think what's fascinating is I speak to so many people who, when they were at school, didn't perhaps fulfill their potential because maybe they weren't quite ready yet to know what it was that they wanted to do. And then they go on and do it later on in life. I know a lot of people who went back and did degrees once they've worked out what they wanted to do. But sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to work out what you want to do, particularly when we're that young. So I think it's having that confidence to go, I'm just going to do the things that I think I can do and do well, and not assume I can't go back and make any changes, because I think sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves, don't we, on those decisions that go, well, if I don't make the decision right now, I'm never going to be able to change it. It's like, you can change those.
Yeah. So 25 years in at Barclays, I suddenly decided to move, and I thought I was going to be there until I retired.
Yeah.
And And I was having a conversation. So you might remember that at the time you and I were working together, we were doing a sales and culture transformation program. And I got into a role that I wasn't enjoying. I picked it because of a title rather than something that I would enjoy. And that was a mistake. And so I asked a few people kind of, what is it you see me doing when I'm really enjoying myself at work? And one of the consultants that we were working with, and they said, well, you're really enjoying this transformation stuff. Why didn't you come and work for us? And I was like, no, I couldn't do that. I'm Barclays through and through. And it took me 6 months to allow myself to think that I could actually do that and make that transition. And I put up 100 different reasons why I couldn't. They're all nonsense.
Yeah.
And I made the move, and it was brilliant. And I just enjoyed every day of being at work. And it threw me into a whole different world. And at times, I was basically going out and doing the same type of role as I've been doing at Barclays, transformation work, but doing that with any number of different banks in any number of different places. And the number of times that we always used to sit, if there were a pair of us and the consulting team would kind of sit and we'd kind of almost wait for the moment when the customer would say, yes, but of course we're different. And you think, not as much as you think you are. Because the basic issues were the basic issues.
They usually are, aren't they? And actually, one of the things that always makes me smile when I'm working with clients as well is they'll go, oh, we're different, or it's really complicated. And I'm like, well, it's kind of not, because everything comes down to people. Because you've got customers, but they're people. You've got colleagues, but they're people. And you've got suppliers and partners, but actually you're dealing with people in all of those. So if you get really good at working with people and listening to understand and trying to find a way forward together, the rest of it becomes easy. And unfortunately, that's usually where it all goes wrong in transformation, isn't it? Because we've got a great plan, but we've not thought about the people and the culture and how you take them on the journey. And so you end up with the part that doesn't quite get embedded because people are fighting against it because it was done to them, not done with them. And I think one of the things you're great at is making sure that you take the people on the journey so that they understand why it's happening, they understand the part that they need to play in it, and they feel safe. Because I guess similarly to you making that massive move, 25 years in Barclays and then suddenly deciding I'm going to go and do a new career, that's got to have been a massive decision. As you said, it took like 6 months. But having to go through that mindset piece of telling yourself why you couldn't versus telling yourself why you could. Yeah. What made that change?
So it's me and my lists. So I'm quite planful, and there was for me there's a sort of a saying that spontaneity takes a lot of forward planning. When you turn out, and we used to hold celebration events, annual celebration events in Barclays, in the division we were in, and we'd want to celebrate the best that had happened over the last period. And the amount of effort, as anybody that knows that's run an event, the amount of effort that goes into something like that is huge. And when you're in the middle of it as a delegate, it feels spontaneous and in the moment and everything else, and you're sat thinking months of effort. So I guess it was that same sort of thing. It's like, what am I trying to work out here? So really what I was trying to work out was, what did I think I would enjoy doing in my career? What sorts of things did I really enjoy? And then how did I make that happen? And the realization that actually transitioning into the consultancy world was going to be a really good move for me, because I would enjoy every moment of every day that I was at work was really important. Then all the other stuff, like pensions and kind of all the other benefits and everything else, you go, well, that none of it disappears.
Yeah.
It just changes. So that was what I just needed to go through that, I suppose, rational, logical process to help me make what some thought was a irrational decision, but for me was so important, because then it opened up the next stage of my career, and I'm now doing what I'm doing, and it would never have happened otherwise.
I love that, because it's so true, isn't it? Things can just come out of the blue. They seem to come out of the blue. They're not, and they are planned and things. But it's amazing how one small change can just open up a whole wealth of different opportunities and new people that you get to meet, new connections, and new lessons to learn, because we learn something, don't we, from everybody that we meet. So what would you say has been the biggest lesson you've learned so far?
I've got a list of that. There's not one single thing, I don't think. So when I kind of think about this, and my wife and I actually discussed this on a journey back. So we've got 2 grown-up children, and we were taking our youngest to university for his first term at university, and our eldest was going back to start his final year.
Wow.
We're dropping them both off, and on the way back, my wife and I were sat in the car going, what do we wish we'd known way back then? There was a whole bunch of stuff, and neither of us had been to university, so this was all new. There was no family history around it or anything else. But we kind of went, well, there's a big thing about preparation. So back to my school days, I used to go into exams without having done revision. And surprise, surprise, I failed them. And you shouldn't turn up at an exam like that. You wouldn't turn up at a sports match like that. You practice.
Yeah.
And Chris, my wife, has got a whole stack of sports medals because she used to practice a lot and got better than everybody else.
Yeah.
So for us, there's a thing about practice. There's a thing about belief. So believe you can do something. So that move for me was quite daunting. But I also remember I'd been to work in Greece earlier on in my career in Barclays, and I was about 2 weeks in, and new country, new culture. This was Greece in 1990, very different to how it is now. Central Athens, hardly anything in English. I was like an alien. That's how I felt. And was really struggling, and somebody just said to me, they grabbed hold of me one day and said, look, this is tough because of all those factors, but you've been picked because somebody's seen something in you. And that just gave me the confidence to believe that I had the ability. And then kind of we went on a bit, and it was about, well, actually stuff happens in your life and there are setbacks. It's not all an upward trajectory, and recognise that we've done all the big things. So we went through, there's been redundancy, death of close families, negative equity, kind of we've experienced our fair share of stuff. But then so does everybody. But it happens. Most of the stuff that happens is relatively small when you think about it in life terms. So kind of accept that and get on with the rest of it.
So I was just going to say that's a great attitude, and you're right. Life does love to throw us the odd plot twist, but one of the things that I always say is you've survived 100% of the challenges life's thrown at you so far. That's one heck of a batting average. I would bet on you to survive the next thing. So that belief piece is huge, isn't it? Because when we ask people to do something for us, or we give them a job, or we give them an opportunity, we do it because we believe that they can. Because if we didn't believe that they could, we wouldn't give it to them, because we'll look stupid. But I think what we fail to do is tell them that we're doing it because we believe in them. And yet the power of belief, the power of somebody giving you their belief is amazing, isn't it? It can totally change where you are. As you said, when you were in Greece, it gives you the courage, I think, almost to keep going and go, maybe I can do this. They believe me. I'll borrow. I've learned late in life to borrow people's belief when I don't have any of my own. I go, okay, if you believe that I can, I'll borrow yours, and I'll do my best not to let you down. And it does allow you to kind of probably find a bit of courage that perhaps I was sadly lacking on my own without having that person in your corner.
And in some ways, it's almost the stuff that our parents taught us, but we didn't realise, because they kept on showing us belief.
Yeah.
Because as a child, how did we know what we could or couldn't do? What we didn't have was lots of limiting beliefs as children, and we just we figured we could walk because everybody else does. Yeah.
That's so true. I use this one all the time. I spotted with my little girl when she's 5 now, but when she was walking. I was like, if I had to wake up tomorrow and learn how to walk or talk or run or jump or skip, I'd be overwhelmed. I think we all would. And yet at my most vulnerable, at all of our most vulnerable, we learned to do it. So why was that?
Limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. And I think for me, one of the things that really came out is I've yet to see a child who's learning to walk that doesn't have at least one adult nearby going, come on, you're nearly there, you've got this. So we quite literally give them our belief.
Yeah.
And yet we stop doing it when we're adults, don't we? We stop overtly giving our belief to people. And yet, wouldn't it be amazing if we started doing it and help people to kind of really lift themselves up?
Yeah. And for me, that's kind of links into some of the other stuff. There's a huge amount of teamwork that gets the things done, as you said earlier. If we all came to the table with the same views and set of skills, it would be a pretty pointless table, really, because we might as well have done it on our own. and there's something I picked up. I've done quite a bit of work in and out of Africa over the years in different roles. And they've got a fabulous proverb down there about, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it just for me, it just summed it up. It's just brilliant. And I think about all the things I've done in life, and that proverb is true.
Yeah. What a great way of summing it up, isn't it? Because you're right. We always go further if we go together, because we open our eyes to new perspectives and new opportunities that we can't see if we just do it on our own, can we? Because we have blinkered views. It's how we're designed. I could literally chat to you all day, but I'm coming to the last question. If you had could go back and give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I think there's something about embrace new opportunities and experiences. There's so many things that come our way and come as an opportunity. And I think back to the idea of Greece. When I was asked what I wanted to do on this assignment, before it became Greece, I wanted to go and work in marketing in Barclaycard. And then they said, oh, well, how about Greece? Go and work for the general manager. And it would have been easy to say, no, I've never been to Greece. And so many other times in my life, and that transition of career, well, no, I'll stay where I am. Just embrace it. People believe in you, so have that belief in yourself. Embrace the opportunities. I wouldn't have married the person I've been married to for 30 years. I wouldn't have had all these work experiences if I hadn't just done a few things that were right outside my frames of reference. So just embrace opportunities and experiences.
That is great advice, isn't it? Because sometimes we are the ones that hold ourselves back. And yet actually if we take the leap of faith and we trust that actually what's the worst that can happen, that is one of the sayings I say to myself all of the time when I'm given an opportunity, is what's the worst that can happen and can I live with it? And as long as I can live with it, then I'll take the opportunity. But it took me a lot of years to get to that, and almost, life makes sense only in the rear view mirror, doesn't it? You have to look back and go, oh yeah, but look at all these times where I did push out of my comfort zone, or I did go outside of my frame of reference, or I went and did something that felt uncomfortable at the time, but I stayed with it, and look what it brought me as a result of that.
And as you said earlier, Kim, kind of what's the worst that can happen? Typically, that you might learn a few things. You might not have been successful in the task, but you have learned some things. So I was going, well, the worst that can happen is I learn a few things.
Yeah, and that's
not so bad, is it?
That's so true, because when we change how we view something to say, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to learn a way not to do it, which allows me to be one step closer to doing it right next time. Because once we remove all the ways of getting it wrong, we'll find the way that gets it right. It's just exactly. Allows us to move forward, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, brilliant, Mark. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey with us. I will make sure that all the links of how people can get in touch with you and learn more also about STEP and the great work that they're doing are in the show notes. And thank you so much. I look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Kim.